All right, I'd like to thank you all for joining us here in this training session. My name is Andy Hughes. I'm U.S. Marketing Lead, and we're really excited to be announcing these different features and demonstrating them. So we have a lot to cover. I'm going to hand things over to Fernando Jimenez, our Strategic Account Manager.
Because you weren't the presenter, yeah.
Hey, Fernando.
All right, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Andy. So if at any point anyone has any trouble with audio, please let us know. We'll try to correct it ASAP. All right, folks. So again, my name is Fernando Jimenez. Again, thank you, Andy, for that introduction. I've been here. I'm currently an account manager here. Started off doing tech back in the mid-2000s out here, and then eventually went to sales, and then tech again, and then we're back here doing sales-related matters one more time. So I've been here a while, and obviously we catered this new training and what's new session for all of you based on my past experiences and everybody else's here as well. So today we actually have a really big agenda. We've got a few trainings to go through. We're going to be showing you a couple other things in terms of what's new with Compleo. And we got some new great people that have joined us recently, and these guys are going to be showing us a couple things or two. I mean, a couple things here and there. And this training itself, it will be available upon request. So if you just kind of hang out and check out towards the end, we'll let you know how to get access to the recording. All right. So we're going to go ahead and tell you what the part of the agenda is here. So in terms of training, we've got a couple things that we're going to show you. For those of you that are not aware of this, Compleo is multi-platform. We started developing for other platforms maybe 10 years back. We not only work with AS400s, we also work with SAP and Microsoft CRM. For example, there's other platforms also that we work with. In terms of trainings, we're going to have Steve showing us how to remap and import into Excel. Miriam in our Boston office will be showing us how to create a quick form using either IPDS or AFPDS. And Kedron also in our Boston office will be showing us how to create a form from an XML file. All right, let's see. And after each of these sessions, after each training session, what we'll do is we'll show you a what's new feature or what's new with Compleo 7.4. And we'll be focusing today more on electronic signatures and the document distribution that follows it. And this is actually more specifically tailored for those who may be looking into speeding up their workflows that involve getting important documents reviewed and or signed. It could be POs, it could be invoices, it could be any kind of form. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and get started here with Steve. Steve's going to be showing us how to import an SAP Spool file into Excel. We'll be looking at leveraging an Excel templates. We're going to show you also how to consolidate multiple row records into one record in Excel, and also show you a really key thing here, which is cell text replacement and the use of variables. So without further ado, Steve, I will make your presenter so that you can go ahead and show us how to perform this.
Awesome. Thank you, Fernando. So I'm just going to go ahead and show my screen here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's training. I am Steve Delgado, Solutions Consultant here at SimTrax, and today I will be showing you some essential skills for Compleo Explorer. So let me just go ahead and open up this training folder here. And I'm going to just be opening up this Compleo Explorer template. So I'll be showing you how to generate an Excel report for vendors from an existing report that has been created in SAP. We'll navigate to this folder here and open up this SAP spool file. So now in this example, we are using an SAP spool file, but Compleo is multi-platform, and we can work with various systems and with various incoming documents. So I'm just going to go into our template designer tab here, and as you can see, we've already designed this beforehand. We're already grabbing certain information such as variables from the file itself. But in this case, the user is wanting information from these three lines. As you can see throughout the spool file, these three lines repeat pretty much throughout the spool files, and the user wants to grab certain information and condense them all into one row in Excel. So as you can see here, we are grabbing certain information such as this item description and placing it on the third row. I'm just going to go ahead and run this template so you guys can see how that looks. I'm going to be going back into this folder, And as you can see in the background, there was a folder that was created called orders. And essentially what's going on is Compleo Explorer is taking apart the spool file and converting all the data and information into this Excel file that I'll open up so you guys can see, and placing that information into columns as necessary. So as I was stating before, as you can see, we are grabbing the information here, such as that item description, and it is being placed into that third column of Excel. And we're also grabbing other information as well. But instead of just showing you that final example, I'm going to go ahead and close this Excel sheet out, open up a new Compleo Explorer template, and we'll start from scratch. So we're not necessarily going to go through all of this. We're going to try to keep this pretty simple in this training, so it could go pretty quick. So now with this Compleo Explorer template, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to our SAP system, and I'm going to expand our connection. I'm going to go into our Compleo output device here and navigate to our spool file that we will be working with, which would be this one. So now I'm going to go into our template designer tab, and I'm just going to go ahead and simply clean things up here. So I'm going to go into our page settings here, and I'm going to go ahead and delete any blank lines that may be in the spool file, as well as any page breaks so that no unnecessary characters show up at our end report. And now I'm just going to go ahead and work with the spool file, clean this up a little by using line conditions. So I'm just going to simply grab information such as this dashed lines. I'm going to say OK, and what happens is any lines with those dashed lines, or starting with the dashed lines, will be removed. So I'm going to go ahead and remove a few more lines here, such as this still to be delivered. Let me minimize this a little bit. Still to be invoiced. And now navigating with the simple navigation, I'm going to go to page 4 because we do need to remove one more line here called contract release order. So I'll just go ahead and remove that as well. So just as simple or as quick as that, we've removed lines that we don't need for this report. And now we'll begin working with the spool file. So what I'm going to do here is divide the spool file. As you can see, I've created like a line here, a cut. So I'm just going to go ahead and create or divide our spool file into 2 separate sections. So we'll name the first section the header section, as it contains header information. And we'll call the second section data, just so that we know what we're working with. So now I'm going to go back into the header section. I'm going to right click and delete the cell. So now what this does is it basically removes all that header information from all the pages, and it will not be placed into our end report. So I'm going to go back into our section data, or our data section, and I'm going to right click and add a segment. So what this does now is we're going to start looking at this spool line by line. But in this case, we don't want to just look at one line. We want to look at 3 lines at the same time, since these 3 lines repeat again throughout pretty much the whole spool file. Here in this case, we do want to add a condition as well, so that we know that these 3 lines, that the purchase order will begin, will start off these 3 lines. And the way that we do this is by stating a condition that second character is not empty. So that second character represents that purchase order, kind of what's stated on the header. So now we've done that, we're going to go ahead and add a variable so that we grab information from the spool file itself. We do have different variables we could grab. In this case, we're just going to use this variable option, and we're going to grab the name of the vendor. So now we're going to extend this box a little more, because the name of the vendor could shift. Since this is a dynamic variable that's grabbing information from the spool file, we'll increase that box. So now we already named the variable vendor name, just so that we know what variables we are working with, since we can have hundreds or tens of variables. So here, one more thing I'll add to this variable is a special setting. And what we'll be adding is trim blank spaces at both ends. So any blank spaces that may occur in this box, either before or after, will be removed. And this is important when we're creating our report. So now that I've grabbed our variable, I'm going to go back into our segment section and change our segment format from parse to remap. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and grab information that we want to use for our end report, such as a purchase order. So we'll just go ahead and create a box, double click, and we'll grab that information there. We'll grab the date here. We'll also grab the name of the item, the quantity, the units, the net price, and we'll add just one more box using this pipe here. We'll grab this box here. So this box is going to be used later on to create an Excel formula. So now that we've grabbed all the information that we want, we're going to go ahead and rearrange it so that it fits into the Excel row perfectly, or the way that we want it to look. So in this case, we'll move the date first. Next, we'll have the purchase order. Following that, we'll have the item description, the order quantity, the units, the net price, and then the Excel formula that we'll be using afterwards. So now that we've gotten all our information that we need, we'll add special settings just so that it looks a little neater at the end of our report. So here we'll also add the trim blank space that we've added before in our variables. But we want to add this to all of these items here. And so the way that we can simply do that is by copying the format, right-clicking, and then paste format to section and or segment. So what this does is it will paste that format that we added, the trim blank space, and it'll add it to all of those, all that information that we're grabbing. So now that we've done that, we're going to work with this second to last item here, and we're going to replace the contents. So as you can see, we do have a comma where the dot should be. So we're going to go ahead and substitute the text from it being a comma to a dot. So we'll say OK. And last but not least, we're going to go ahead and create our Excel formula here by using replace contents. So here we're just going to go ahead and add our formula here, which is going to be just a simple calculations of getting the total price using multiplication formula. So now that we've done that, we've essentially grabbed all the information that we needed. And this is how our final view is going to look like in Excel. Sort of like this. As you can see, it's kind of spread in columns, but it hasn't given all that format in Excel, or what Excel does. So now that we know how our data is going to look like, we're going to go into our segment and add a run mode. So here there are different actions that we could take. We can send this end document via SMTP. We can upload it to Amazon Web Services or send it to through FTP. You know, this would depend on what you would need it to do. In this case, we're just gonna use this Microsoft Excel option to simply create an Excel file. So once we click the Microsoft Excel, as you can see, we do have default settings that Compleo gives you in order to create the file. And in this case, we're going to be using this command to use a Excel template. So I'm just going to go back into our folder here that contains our Excel template, just so that you can see what Excel template we're using. And you know, in this case, we're just using a simple template that has header information, as you can see here. But you know, this could be as complex as needed, so it could contain macros and you know, so on and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and close this off, minimize this, and go back into this Compleo Explorer. So as you can see now, I'm going to go ahead and use that command, use template, go into more options, and we're going to be using a local file. We do have options to use different file locations. And in this case, we're going to go back into that. We're going to be using that template from that folder called training. So we'll say OK here. And one more thing, in that template itself, there was already header information that was placed in the template. So we're going to need to start populating our data into A8 instead of A1. So here we're going to give that that option there. And last but not least, we're going to go into this close Excel task, double click, open it up, and we're going to use this option called close Excel after saving. So now here we're going to save our file to a path that we want. We're going to use this little save icon, and we're going to save it into that training folder itself. Here we're going to call the name of this report. We'll just say report 4, and we'll leave it blank. And the reason why is because we're going to be using variables that we've created beforehand, such as this vendor name. So as you can see here, we have this report 4, and I'm going to use this variable button to choose the variables I want. So here we do have different options for variables. I'm just going to be using the vendor name variable that we created before, using a dash, and we're going to use one more variable from this file information drop-down menu. Now this information is coming from the spool file as well as Compleo itself. So the variable that I'm going to be using is this current date, just so that you know that this is happening in real time. It's happening today. So I'll just say OK. And now I'm just going to go ahead and make this an XLSX files, or the newer version of Microsoft Office. So I'll hit OK, and I'll say OK. And last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and add a condition for this run mode. So the condition that I'm going to give it is whenever that vendor name changes, when it's looking for that variable, whenever that name changes, it's going to create a whole new workbook. So now that I've given it that condition, I'm just going to run this template. And we'll navigate back into our training folder. Move this a little bit over here. So as you can see, it created this first report. Now it's created the second report. So whenever that variable changes, so as you can see, it says report for our variable, which is our vendor name here, the year, today's date here. So we'll go ahead and just open up this last Excel report that was created. And as you can see, here's that report that we've created using Compleo Explorer. So now that we've created, this template, we could save it, and it could be used for in Supervisor to automate this task. So that's all the training I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm gonna give this back to you, Fernando.
Alrighty, Steve, that was great. Essential skills for anyone that wants to import any kind of spool file from any kind of platform, as we said. And I want to emphasize, we are multi-platform. So if you have a need, you have a report that needs to be sent into Excel, then Compleo Explorer is a good candidate for that. So again, thank you, Steve. Again, he showed us how to leverage Excel templates, consolidate multiple records into one, and then also the very important cell text replacement and use of variables. All right, so the next item, as promised, is something that's got to do with what's new with Compleo. So one of the biggest changes, or biggest newest feature in Compleo, is the general electronic signatures. So just in general, I don't know, and I would like to know if you guys are kind enough, and maybe let me know through the chat message, whether you use some kind of a signature process to sign your either POs, invoices, or what have you. Please let me know down in the chat box. So anyway, things to consider for when you're going to implement electronic signatures. Does your signature include reviews and comments? Meaning, before the document is before the document is signed, does it need to be reviewed by someone, or maybe even add some special comments towards the end? Are these signers required to be registered online? Should documents be revised prior to signing? Can you create a quick note on top of these things? Do you need to create an account with a provider like maybe DocuSign? How do you identify these documents that need to be signed or reviewed? In terms of distribution and storage, after these documents are stored, should they be followed up online with some kind of tracer or what have you? Things like that to consider. Also, I believe that's all I got in terms of this. What I want to get into right now is the slide for one of the videos that we'll be showing you, one of the processes here. So we have this workflow here. We're going to be working with a smart form with the purchase order. In this case, we'll be working with one purchase order. However, we can work with batch files as well. So this purchase order will be monitored by Compleo Supervisor in the background, as you can see here. It'll turn that smart form, a purchase order, into a PDF, and then it'll send it over to a new feature of Compleo called Remote Agent. And this will pop up on an end user screen, and it'll ask him to basically review the document, sign it, and then once that is signed, it'll be sent over to Compleo Archiver. And then Compleo Archiver will do something specifically with that. In this case, what it'll do is it'll send the end user who originally requested the form out in SAP will get an email with the document signed, and if there are any comments in there, then they'll be included in that final document as well. So again, like I mentioned, feel free to share what it is or how it is that you're working with electronic signatures here in the chat box, and we'd be happy to check those out and see how we compare with what you're already doing, or if we can in any way enhance what you're doing, that also works as well. So what I'm going to go for now is I'm going to open this quick little video demonstration, and it'll show you basically what I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to maximize this guy here. So this is the SAP main screen, and what we're going to do here is we're actually going to go over to the spool file, well, a version of the spool file that Steve was working with. All right, we're going to click on OK here. So that's the spool file that Steve was working on. We're going to go specifically to a specific PO here. We'll do a little print preview of this PO. And again, this is just a one PO. We're going to create a spool file, and again, we can create more than one. In this case, a batch file if needed to. Okay, so this is where the original request is made on this particular machine. Now we're going to go over to the reviewer's machine, or the person who's going to approve. And on the lower right side, you'll notice that there's a little pop-up coming up here. So this is our remote agent. It sends a notification, the document, you can open it immediately, and we can start looking through it just to kind of verify what the document is. And here we have a little special comments that Compleo added here. The end user can come in here, enter some special comments. In this case, the document is valid, and then just kind of put your initials on there. And then upon validation, we'll add a signature to it. And then here at the back of the screen here, you can see all the other documents that were worked on as well. So now we're back over to the original creator of this purchase order. Shortly here, you'll see that we're going to get an email. So that'll be coming up in the top right, and it's just an Outlook notification saying there's an email that came through. Give it a second there. There it is. Okay, and we get that email here, and notice that we've got some customized information. We've got a link here from Archiver. We click on that, and then notice how this opens up in the browser. And at the very top left, you can see the Archiver website there. At the bottom left here, you'll see the signature of well, the signed document here, and also some terms and conditions were added to that document. And that is actually it for this part of this What's New with Compleo. I'm going to go ahead and move over to our next trainer. And the next item up for bid here is training with creating quick forms. Some of you work with IBM still, and as you know, IBM no longer supports AFPDS. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have Miriam show you how to create a form leveraging a spool file that was generated using AFPDS. And obviously, Compleo Layout is a tool that provides an alternative for those looking to continue to working with AFPDS without actually, continuing to modify or code using AFPDS. And also, we work with IPDS, just regular text spool files. So let's go ahead and send this over to Miriam up in Boston so that she can show us how to work with Compleo Layout here. Let me make her presenter here. So Miriam, when you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Fernando, for the introduction. I am Miriam, and I am in the Boston office, and I'm going to quickly show you how to create your files, a template using Layout. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side, I've navigated to the spool file that we're going to be working with. This is an AFPDS, as you can see the form type there. And basically what AFPDS spool files are, they contain graphics that are not visible until printed. However, with Layout, you're able to change the graphics and view the graphics without reformatting or reprogramming this spool file. For the sake of time constraints, I'm going to show you how I made some changes already on the spool file. And in this case, the changes I've made was to remove most of these borders that you can see surrounding the text. So basically what I did is erase this text by using the erasing zone icon like this, and that selected it and also made it disappear. You can also select text as well as the graphics that you no longer want if you want to remove certain areas of text. Now that we've removed all the borders and graphics, what we're going to do next is actually create a table so that it can look more professional and more pleasing to the eye. So in this case, we selected the table, and now we're going to add the columns. We're going to add additional columns to this table. As you can see, they're not evenly distributed. However, you can space them out by clicking there, or you can actually drag and align the column lengths as you see fit, like what we're doing right now. I'm going to quickly do this formatting so that it can look better, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us later. And then now that we've set up the main columns, what we're going to go and do next is actually change the font format for the headers. So in this case, I want us to add a bold style to it so that it can pop a bit more like that. And there are very many options that you can use. You can also add color, as we're going to use right now, so that it can also pop. And by selecting the style and the color checkbox as well as the color choice, you'd be able to now see that in our final file it would have the blue. Now we're going to add another table at the bottom so that we can put the total for this, and we're going to create it the same way we created the one on top. However, it's just going to have one row, and we're going to move this column spacing so it can look more professional. I previously selected this, and we can move it here and be able to see how the table looks. It looks a lot better with it there. And then now we're just going to quickly finish formatting this template by moving the page number lower. And as you can see, this page number is included in the spool file. Okay. By selecting partially inside, it's going to pick anything within the borders that we selected. And then now we're going to create a variable because we want to use this variable going forward for the PDF name as well as to create graphics. So we're going to name this variable the invoice number, and by selecting the location of the variable, we're also going to add some variable formatting, whereby we're going to remove all the empty spaces before and after the selected area, as well as replacing the / that we have in the variable using text substitution. So going forward, the variable selected is the / will be replaced by a blank space. Now that we've done that, we're going to quickly add some graphics, And in this case, we are going to add our company logo, and it is in a local file. As you can see, you can also select a variable for that. And there we go. We have the company logo, and there are also other graphics that you can add. So in this case, we're going to use a barcode code 128, and we're going to use the variable that we selected in order to create the barcode. Okay, there we go. And now you can see that the variable name will of course be substituted by numbers. And then now we are going to go and make our run mode. And our run mode in this case is going to be creating a PDF file. And the run mode is very similar to what Steve had shown earlier. And now we're going to change the name for the PDF file that will be created. And we're going to add the variable name that we created, as well as today's date, so that you can tell when the invoice is created. And getting today's date is going to be the metadata that has been pre-generated. And then now we're going to run this template, and we should see everything we added. Here is the barcode, and as you can see, the numbers were generated, and you can see the logo as well as the table. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to pass this on back to Fernando.
Alrighty, thank you, Miriam. I'm going to go back and share my screen here. So as I'm doing that, just want to remind you folks that, again, we are multi-platform. What Miriam showed you, for those of you that might be moving over to SAP, we also work with smart forms or any other forms that SAP might be creating. So if you're moving from the iSeries over to SAP, feel free to kind of let us know, and we'll give you some pointers in terms of what we've experienced with people transitioning from the iSeries over to SAP, or for that matter, maybe even the CRM. All right, so again, just to kind of summarize what we were shown here by Miriam, we looked at redesigning the main table. We looked at how to create an instant barcode and how we can instantly create these logos. And more specifically, these logos were saved on a PC, so that's pretty cool, easy. And we also removed some undesired text and maybe graphics that were lingering around there. So let me see, what we're going to move forward here is we're going to go back into that wavelength of what's new with Compleo. So we're going to go here, what's new with Compleo, and we're going to show you another little workflow here. And again, we're focusing on digital signatures or electronic signatures inside of your document workflow. In this case, since we were working with an IBM document before, as you saw, Miriam created a PDF. So what else can we do on top of that PDF? In this case, we're going to go from what Miriam showed us, from that invoice over to maybe working with a work order acknowledgement. And this is actually a spool file that contains tons of work orders. So as we said, we can work with single files, or we can work with batches as well. All right, so we have that PDF, and then once that PDF is created, it's going to be sent over to our new module called Compleo WebSign for signature, electronic signature. All right, once that document is signed, it'll be sent over to Compleo Archiver, which is our web storage facility there. And once that archiver creates or grabs this file, Compleo is going to create a link to that file on our website. All right, so we're going to go ahead and show you what that looks like in terms of this work order on the iSeries. So I'm going to go ahead and start this quick little video. All right, here we have that green screen. All right, we're going to take a quick look at this work order. All right, this is what it looks like. You can see here we've got sample text or replace broken tap. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hold and release. All right, so right away we're looking over now at the mobile or at the cell phone of this end user where their email is configured to drop. You can see the workers are coming through. We have a link here that'll send the end user over to our website site. All right, so the end user is going to be prompted for a security code. Notice how we get a little text message here. So as soon as he enters that text message, I'm sorry, the code on that text message, they'll be able to review or sign the documents that are awaiting signature. All right, so we're loading the documents here. And as you can tell, we took that green screen looking document spool file into something that looks a little bit better. Okay. Okay, and we're going to add some comments here. Pretty simple. And then shortly after, what we'll do is we'll show you how to sign this document directly from the phone. So we're going to select a type of signature. In this case, you can actually draw it as you see here. You can actually upload it to it if you have an image that you've scanned. We can punch in here, manually print the name that we want to sign our documents with, select a font there. All right, and then once we sign it, what's going to happen is that end user who created the batch document in the iSeries is going to get some emails. You can see they're coming through here. Okay. Okay, so you can see here we have a custom email. It's got metadata from the spool file down here. We've got a link up here with the actual work order, or one of the work orders. This is the work order. This is how it looks up here on our cover site. Bottom left, you'll see that we've got the signature. All right, so we're going to go back to the email, and what we're going to be looking at now is at the very bottom, you'll see a link that says password protected file. So this PDF has been password protected. Only the end user would know what that password is. We have the ability to code that in there. And then here, because it is sensitive information, this happens to be a payslip. We actually added the password for that. Okay, and now just kind of going back to the work order, we'll do a little right-click, look at document properties. And obviously, this is just to confirm that the document came from a source that is trusted, and in fact it was actually from the Syntrax iSeries. So that's what we have in terms of batch files here and the work order. What we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and continue with our training mode. In this case, we're going to send it back to Boston, and Kedge is going to be showing us how to create a form using an XML document derived from our Microsoft CRM. However, you guys might have customers or providers that send you XML files, and what we're going to show you is we're going to show you how to take those XML files and create a human-readable document. Also, you know, in the time that I've been working here with the company, I've seen an array of different file types that we work with, that Compleo works with. And again, one that's always caught my attention is XML. For instance, big companies like Walmart, they tend to send their orders to their providers using XML files that their system creates. And with Compleo Designer, which is again what Ken's going to be showing us, you can design templates that can translate that XML file into a human-readable PDF. All right, and also something that's very important that's taking place right now as we speak in a lot of our Latin American countries. They are using e-invoicing. And a lot of that basically includes XML files with signatures and all that, and that is something that Compleo can handle. So without further ado, I'm going to send this over to Kedron so you can show us how to create a PDF used or created from an XML file. So we're going to send this over to Kedron now. Kedron, take it away when you're ready.
Thanks, Fernando. So like Fernando said, I'm going to be showing you how you can create a PDF out of an XML file. So the XML file that I'm using for this training, this is an XML file that's been taken from our CRM, and it's a quote that was generated. So this has been exported, and now here it is in our notepad. But in order to actually convert it into the PDF, I'm going to go into our designer module. So I'm just going to open up a template that I've made for this training. And now here in Designer, I'm in the Navigator panel, and I am going to go into our the quote that I just showed you. And here in the original view, you can see here's all the data. And in the final view, this is what the end PDF is going to look like. So for this training, I decided that I would show you guys here in our Compleo 7 version, we now have the ability to go into the different versioning of the template. So you can see the past 10 versions of the template. So I'm just going to open up this latest version, and it got rid of all the other additions that I'm going to put right back in. So these are guidelines that I've put in, and I'm just going to remove them so it's easier to view, and just by double clicking them. So with Designer, we have this variable information. So I'm going to insert a variable into this text box. We have inherent variable information such as the name, the size of the file, and user-defined variables such as this has been previously defined. It's number, item, the unit price, and what have you. But what's nice in Designer is that we can actually work with the document data as a variable. So I'm going to go into this document data, and I'm going to take the quote modified on. And as you see, it appears here in this variable form. I'm just going to highlight it, make it bold, and then here it appears as the actual information. And I'm going to do the same thing here in this box, and I'm going to go into this variable information, and I'm going to find the quote number, and then I'm going to insert that in there. And as you can see, whatever you do to this actual variable reflects in the final PDF that's going to be formed. So here we go. I made it italicized, made it a little bit larger, and there it appears. And an interesting thing with Designer, here if we go back into the Template Designer tab, we can go and click on this Display Values. So display values, you can choose whether or not you want to display the document data or see it as a variable. And that's just for your own making of the Designer template. So if we click on it, it's going to show you, oh, so here, this is the quote number that we were using, as well as this is the date modified on. I can expand that a little bit. And so I'm just going to go back and have it display the actual values. Here in this same panel, you can see that we can actually work with the document data right from here. So I'm going to click on document data, and it's going to bring me up this document data. So this is all the XML data. And with this XML data, it's very easy to just either create a table, we can create several text zones, or we can create a single text zone with the data. So I've already created a table and modified it, but I'm just going to show you how easy it is to make one. So I'm going to just take this, I'm going to drag this data over here, and there are tables that has appeared. And now I'm going to go and into this table view. Here we can work with the different, we have the options to go through the different properties of the table, the style, set a condition, and set the variables that are going to be in this table. So I'm going to go into the conditions a little bit later, but right now I'm going to go into the style. So here in style, we can edit the table, change it however we want. I'll set this color, and then I'll set the column separators to be a different color, as well as change the dash style, change the width, and there you go. So with this, I'm going to delete this. So now that I've deleted this table, well, I have the option to retain the objects or not, which is a nice feature in Designer, but I'm going to say no, just in case you want to keep the objects that you were actually making the table out of. So I'm going to continue filling out this table. Here, actually, I'll go into this, into the variable view. So what I have here is I have two different tables. This total software suite is one table, and then up here with the item solution description, etc., that's the second table. So in order to get this second table, this total software suite table to appear, I've set a condition. So here, if you go into condition, and then just bring this up a little bit. Here, so now what it says is, in order for this table to appear, this variable value needs to change. So I've set the variable value to be the product ID. And so if the product ID code switches, like it changes, then the table will appear. And we have more options. We can do a comparison variable. So this gets a little bit high level, but basically saying that if a value, you can compare two values, and if they're different, or you have many different options here. And if that changes, then the table will appear. But basically what conditions allow you to do is you can set different criteria for a table to appear or not, which is very helpful in Designer. So I'm just going to go continue filling out the table. And I'm going to have this quote modified on, say OK. Oh, and then actually, I think I want to set this as the product ID. And then here we go, the quote ID, say OK. And here for unit price, I'm going to go and insert one of the user-defined variables. So here I've created a variable called unit price, just going to say OK. And one more time, as you can see, it hasn't appeared in the table. But if we go back into the display values option, you can see there it is, right there in the chart, or in the table rather. So I'm going to go back to the display values. And now that I have pretty much all I want in terms of the table data, I'm going to go into a bit of the header and footer information. So here in header and footer, in this option right here, I can go and change what appears in the header and footer. So I'm going to insert a QR code. And there we go. It's similar if you remember the barcode from the previous training. This is similar in that I'm going to put a variable that's assigned to this QR code. So I'm going to attach the quote ID and say OK. Now you can see that there's a little bit of white here that I don't really want in the final. So here within the selected object, I'm just going to click fill color, and that makes that disappear. Make it a little bit larger too. Actually, I'll just move it. There we go. And then see, now if you have this selected, you'll still be working within header and footer, which gets a little bit confusing. So I'm just going to click on that, and then I'll finish this off by putting our logo on there. So there we go. Change the size a little bit. And now to finish it off, here we have in the run modes the actual processes. So here in the processes, this is basically where you decide what you want the final PDF, what you want to apply to the final PDF. So here we have all the different actions. And in case you ever forget what one of these actions does, you can click right here in the help box, and it'll bring you up all the different actions do. So for this one, I'm going to select the application to be run with the source file. I'm going to pick Adobe Acrobat. So here we go, Adobe Reader, and say OK. And now I'm going to run the template. So just a reminder, I started out with this XML and created this PDF from it. This was, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But I'm going to hand it back to Fernando and let him take over from here.
All right, Kedron, thank you. Go back over here and share my screen. Okay, so everybody noticed here how Kedron didn't really have to provide much detail in terms of how to create the tables and text boxes in at least his example. All this stuff is the way you manipulate objects in Designer is similar to the way you manipulate objects in Layout. So whatever we learned from Miriam earlier kind of transitions over to this Compleo for XML. Let's see now, the next thing we're going to be looking at here is, there's another slide here, kind of going back over to what's new with Compleo. We have one more workflow to show you. What we're going to do here is we're going to continue on with the document or the file that Kedron was working with, which was that quote. And we're going to do something with that as well. We're going to create that PDF document. And then after that document is created, we're going to send this document over to Compleo Reviewer, another newer module of Compleo, where an end user can go in and look over the document, and if some items or some text needs to change, they can change it there. And then once the changes are clear, then they can go ahead and approve the document for signature. Once the document is signed, it'll be sent over to Compleo Archiver again, our document repository online, and then an email will be sent over to the end user. And as you can tell here, at the end, we showed you how to work with SAP documents, IBM documents, CRM documents as well, and then eventually everything lands in Compleo Archiver for storage. After it's been signed and reviewed and signed, I should say, the link is sent, and then the end user gets that email. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is, like I said, I'm going to work on that CRM quote that Kedron was kind enough to show us how to create. And what we're going to be doing here is we're looking at the machine of the sales rep who's going to be creating a quote. Okay, so we're going to click on Export to XML here. All right, the quote has been exported. So there's an XML document that's being sent over to a folder. Compleo Supervisor is monitoring that folder. We get this email again with metadata of the file, and we're going to click on the actual link there. And this link is going to send us over to the reviewer console, the reviewer part of Compleo. You can see on the left side you've got all the fields that have been pre-populated by that templates. And if you needed to change anything, you can go ahead and do that there. So we're going to go down and just kind of take a look at the document. Notice that the signature is blank there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a specific PDF file. This PDF file actually contains a proposal, terms and conditions. So we're going to add that to the proposal. Click on Close here. And then we can go over to the signature section here. Just like we showed you earlier, you can create a new signature, you can draw it, you can import, you can type it in, and then select the font at the bottom. Okay. Let's click on Create there. Then we go ahead and accept or approve this document. And again, just like with everything else, our distribution process is via email. We're going to click on the link, and then at the bottom you can see that the document has been signed. Let's go down a little bit, and here you have those terms and conditions that were added by the person reviewing our document. All right. So now, if we do a right-click on this document, we can look at its properties and just verify where this document came from. You can see it's been filled by Compleo for traceability, so it will not lose the authenticity once it leaves your ERP. So this document is outside of the ERP, but if somebody should capture it or grab it, we know where the document actually came from. Okay, so folks, that is really all we've got. We've showed you some trainings. We also showed you what's new with Compleo. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it over to Andy. But prior to that, I'm going to show you, actually, I'm going to recommend that if you do want a copy of this recording or this recorded training, please send us an email at sales@simtrax.com. Again, that's sales@simtrax.com. Let us know what your interest was, and then we'll go ahead and show you where you can grab that training. So Andy, please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Fernando, and thank you to Steve, Miriam, and Kedron for leading us through the training, and also thank you to everybody who joined us today. As Fernando was saying, you can contact us at sales@simtrax.com for more information, including a request for this recording. We also wanted to include a little bit of information about our subscription service if you haven't looked into this yet. It comes with several benefits, including full version upgrades included, 3 hours of consulting services per quarter, and complimentary license transfer. Please reach out to us if you want to know more about that. You can find more information about subscription service and other aspects of our service and solutions offerings on simtrax.com, our website, and you can feel free to chat with us there using our chat box. And then finally, we have the numbers for our Boston and Los Angeles U.S. offices if you want to reach out to us during business hours. All right, thanks again to everybody, and we hope to hear from you soon. We're going to be hopefully having more of these training sessions in the future, so please look out for us on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. All right, thank you. Have a great day.